Good evening to my beloved prep community. In the fall of 2014, I was a sophomore, crammed in the bleachers of the gym, mostly excited for an excuse to be out of class. That day, however, Anne McLean, prep class of 97, stood in front of us and walked us through her journey from these same halls to West Point, to Army Flight School, and eventually NASA. She talked about odds that were never especially good in becoming an astronaut, but she also talked about trying anyway. And she said something that stayed with me, that when you have the courage to reach towards something that feels almost impossible, that is where the magic happens. At the end of that talk, however, I met my boyfriend at the time by the lockers, and he told me he was thinking about going to West Point. I was horrified. I thought it sounded dangerous and intense and entirely too much. And 3 years later, I was at boot camp at West Point. He was pledging a fraternity in Southern California. Nice. A few years after that, I was training to defuse bombs and cut wires on IEDs. Eventually, I became the first woman selected to lead a specialized team of bomb technicians on a 24/7 global response mission involving nuclear weapons of mass destruction. As if a small explosion wasn't enough of a thrill, which is all to say that sometimes the thing that scares you is not a warning sign. Sometimes it is an invitation. And sometimes God is nudging us while we are crammed between stinky high schoolers in a crowded gym. But I do not think that Anne McLean's speech changed me because of one magical moment or one perfect sentence. I think it changed me because prep had already been quietly preparing me to believe that that kind of life was possible. Prep taught me not to live a small life. Not because accomplishments or resumes are the point of it, but because each of us is created with gifts that are meant to be discovered, developed, and then offered back to the world. That is the through line I keep coming back to. Prep did not just teach me to ask, what can I do? It taught me to ask, who am I becoming? Who am I serving? And what does the world actually need from the person that God created me to be? At prep, I was being formed to be open to growth before I knew how badly I would need that. When I left for West Point, I thought I had a pretty clear idea of the world. It was after an election year. I thought I knew how the world worked, who was right, who was wrong, and what I believed. Then I met 18-year-olds from every single state in America, many of whom seemed to have grown up in entirely different countries from me. My roommate was Hawaiian. My close friends were from rural Arkansas. My teammates spanned from Southern California to New Hampshire, and they were kind, intelligent, and thoughtful people that I wanted to be more like. So I had to let go of opinions that I had mistaken for identity. I had to ask better questions. I had to learn that being intellectually engaged does not mean proving that you are the smartest person in the room. It means being humble enough to keep learning from the people around you. Prep also taught me to be religiously alive, instead of just Catholic in baptismal title. It taught me to notice God not only in the Eucharist, but in challenge, friendship, beauty, grief, and failure, and service especially. Service, I learned, is not always dramatic. Sometimes it does look like bomb disposal, but sometimes it looks like recycling. When I arrived at West Point, I noticed there was no real recycling program. Thousands of cadets, endless to-go boxes, plastic bottles, plastic bags, cardboard, and no simple system to do anything better with that waste. And it would be very easy to say, that's not my job. After all, I was a cadet, I was busy, and I was super tired. I had approximately 14 minutes of free time each day, and usually spent them deciding whether laundry was urgent enough to deserve my attention. But prep had taught me that justice is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is noticing what is missing and asking, could I help fix this? So I started asking questions, even though I couldn't even talk outside at the time. I started asking command sergeant majors for money, working with staff, and eventually I helped launch West Point's first recycling program. It wasn't perfect, but it did teach me something I do still believe, that God often uses whatever bothers you, whatever breaks your heart, or whatever you cannot stop noticing as a clue toward where you're supposed to serve. That is why I think the point of becoming capable is not to become impressive. It is to become useful. David Brooks writes about the difference between resume virtues and eulogy virtues. Resume virtues are the things that help you achieve, but eulogy virtues are the things that reveal who you became along the way. Prep, in its own way, gave me both. It challenged me academically, athletically, and spiritually. But the deeper gift was that it never let me believe achievement was enough on its own. The question was not just, what can you do? It was, who are you becoming? Who are you serving? What does the world need from the person God created you to be? As a young woman at Prep, that formation mattered more to me than I realized. Prep gave me examples of women who had answered those questions and took up space without apology. Women like Cherie McKernan, Anne McLean, and Jennifer Christopher shaped the world around me into one of agency, possibility, and wonder. They showed me that strength did not have to come at the expense of warmth, that faith required more than passivity, and that ambition did not have to mean self-importance. I would later spend almost 9 years in environments that were predominantly male, from 75% to 92%. West Point, engineering, bomb disposal. There were plenty of moments where I felt out of place, sometimes because of others, and sometimes because of my own lack of confidence. But Prep had given me a deeper place to stand, because I had seen strong women around me as mothers, teachers, coaches, friends, and the occasional astronaut. I always knew deep down that being a woman was never a reason to self-select out of these hard spaces. That first woman title mattered to me, of course, but what mattered more was realizing I did not want to be the last. I later got to coach and encourage a younger teammate from West Point to try out for the unit after me. Watching her excel, and in many ways surpass me, shifted something in me. It was no longer just, can I make it? And it became, who else can I help make it? That is why Jesuit education matters. Prep teaches students not only to think critically, but to discern. Not only to achieve, but to serve. And not only to stand out, but to stand for truth and justice. So if I could concentrate on what Prep gave me, it would be this: the deeper place to stand and the courage to offer whatever gifts I was given to give back to the world. Prep taught me not to self-select out of the life that was calling to me. It taught me to try before I felt ready, to risk failure instead of living half-heartedly, and to care deeply even when caring felt deeply uncool. And the things that make you, you are not obstacles to becoming useful in this world. They are often the very things that God can use. So 10 years ago, I sat in the bleachers and heard Anne McLean say that when you reach towards something that feels almost impossible, that is where the magic happens. I believe that. But I also believe that the magic is not only in becoming impressive, it is in becoming useful. It is in letting God take your courage, your questions, your gifts, your weirdness, your ambition, and turn them outward in love. So examine your life thoughtfully, care deeply, and do not self-select out. Do not live lukewarm. After all, nothing lukewarm ever set the world on fire. Thank you.